Are we, let me make sure we are on. Are we on? Am I on? Okay. All right, good afternoon. I'm Superintendent David Gillum, and it is my pleasure to welcome everyone to the North Campus of the Ignite Academy of Madison County Schools. On behalf of the district, it is my honor to welcome Governor Andy Beshear to this campus, one of our 2 career and technical education centers in the district that were open this school year. Ignite Academy focuses on career and technical education, giving training and education opportunities to both college-bound and career-bound high school students in our district. We are excited to welcome Governor Beshear and all of our guests to this facility and to our district. Governor, this is the 7th time that we've been together in Madison County since you took office, and 3 of those times have been on our school campuses to celebrate important announcements specific to our school district. We thank you for that, and we thank you for your support and faith in public education. We are excited to hear more about your Education First plan. So, ladies and gentlemen, Governor Andy Beshear.
What a great way to end a Thursday, being in one of the best public school districts in Kentucky. And one led by one of the finest superintendents in this entire state. And what a great way to end a Thursday by being here to lift up both our educators and our students and to continue to fight for them and to fight for what's right. After 3 tough years of a pandemic, tornadoes, ice storms, flooding, inflation, a polar plunge, even the economic repercussions of a war in Europe, something I only thought I'd read about in textbooks. We have been through a lot. But I truly feel that as we are coming into this new year, we have a chance to turn the page, to move from a period of great difficulty to one of great promise and prosperity. In many ways, it's like that psalm that says that grief may linger in the evening, but joy comes in the morning. I believe that's exactly where we are in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Because as we look forward, we see more opportunity coming to more places in Kentucky than at any time in my lifetime. More new jobs, more new industries, more opportunity for everyone, regardless of what level of education they decide to pursue, of course, after graduating from an amazing facility like this, that there is a great job available to them. Now, since I came into office, the Lieutenant Governor and my administration has been laser focused on those worries that we as parents and as adults feel when we sit down at our kitchen table at night and breathe out. Those worries like, do I have a good paying job, one where I can provide for my family, but more than that, provide more opportunity for that next generation than I had? Can I afford to take my kids or my parents to see a doctor when they're sick? Are my family and my community safe? And are my kids getting the very best education? These are the worries of a parent, I know, because I am one. But I have faith in us. I have faith that we as Kentuckians, with everything we've been through and the challenges that we have faced, that sticking together, just like we did in the aftermath of tornadoes or dealing with a pandemic or helping people after that flooding, that we together can address these concerns and truly provide for a better life for each and every one of our families with absolutely no one being left out. When we look at coming off the 2 best years for economic development, with us, Kentucky, leading the entire country in so many areas, our future is bright. It's something that we've never done before. You realize in August of last year, we led the entire country in new job growth, us, Kentucky. And in September, we tied for number 1 in new job growth. Now I'm kind of happy for New Hampshire. But I'm thrilled that for 2 straight weeks, 2 straight months, we were the envy of the country. And when you look at what's going on close to here and throughout the Commonwealth, things like becoming the electric vehicle battery production capital of the United States of America, us right here in Kentucky, other states are looking at us and wondering, how are we making this happen? And I'm looking back saying, I'm not going to tell you. Now, the truth is, we worked really hard to get here, all of us. With more than $20 billion in new investment in the last 2 years, more than 32,000 new jobs in just 2 years alone. There's enough credit to go around for everybody, but it took hard work. Hard work is what it's taken to get us to the top of so many of those lists that we want to be there, and it's going to be hard work that is required to keep us at the top of those lists. If we want to take 2 great years of economic development and turn them into at least 2 decades of great prosperity, now is the time we have to invest and do that work. A lot of that work must occur in our public school system, and I'm proud to say, as your governor, I'm a product of Kentucky's public schools. Without the teachers, the educators that invested in me, I wouldn't be standing here in front of you today. What they did for me, I will never, ever forget. And I remain grateful to everyone who invested in me along the way. So today I'm thankful to be at Ignite Academy North here in Richmond. And how incredible is this building? My goodness. And here, the Ignite Academy is focused on classrooms, career and technical programs, focused on how we can relieve the worries of our parents by lifting up our educators and better funding our public school system so that it works every single day for every single child. See, if we want to take advantage of this potential in front of us better and more than at any time in our lifetime, we must have the best trained workforce in this country. And that starts with having the best public school system in this entire country. That's what helps us achieve our dream of helping our kids achieve theirs. Because you know, whether you're a parent or a grandparent, anywhere you are across Kentucky, we all share one dream in common, that our kids will never have to leave this state if they don't want to. Because we make every opportunity available for them right here, that no matter how big they dream, they can chase their dream in Kentucky. And that we stop this pattern of our kids moving from Kentucky and start getting other states' talented kids moving to Kentucky. To do that, we have to invest in our educators. Because last year, while we were number 1 for 2 straight months in new job growth, we fell to 44th in teacher pay. You know, yesterday at one of these events, the superintendent said something that stuck with me. They said getting the best teachers is a competition for talent. And last year we fell from paying our teachers 42nd in the country to 44th. I don't know about you, but I'm ashamed of that. That's a list I want to be on the top of and not on the bottom. More than that, our educators, they're our neighbors and they deserve better. See, when you adjust for inflation, last year teachers didn't make more, they made less. On average, a 5.3% decline in pay, again when adjusting for inflation. We asked them to show up and do one of the most important jobs entrusting our kids to them. Yet we watched them make less and be able to afford less for themselves. We didn't just drop in rankings. The resources that our teachers have to raise their own families actually went down. It's part of a bigger trend. Over the last 7 years, when adjusted for inflation, pay has declined for educators 14.7%. That is 10 grand for most people and what they can do with their dollars. And what has that cost? It's cost 11,000 teacher vacancies across this Commonwealth. Those are teachers, coaches, interventionists who are needed in our classrooms. And it means that in so many periods, through no fault of the school system, that there isn't a teacher there for that critical classroom. And who suffers in the end? Our kids who are trying to prepare for these amazing jobs of the future. Every teacher position is critical, and a teacher is irreplaceable. Everyone needs that consistent teacher in the classroom. Each one ensures that every child and every single young person has the best and learns the most they can during that period. As we look across the state and the loss that some people have experienced just because they're doing an incredible thing and sticking with this profession, when you look at different regions, because different regions have had resources to provide different wages, you realize some of our educators have now lost nearly 32% of their earnings adjusted by inflation. That means today they're able to afford 32% less than about a decade ago. That is mind-blowing. Now, Madison County, I know, is working hard on teacher pay, and your superintendent and the Madison County School Board approved a 3% raise for teachers last year, and they did that even when the state did not provide what I asked them to, every dollar of transportation funding, which would have freed up more dollars for things like those raises. And I want to thank you and the board for doing your best. But we know that more is needed. And it is time for the state to do its part, because you shouldn't be having to dip into funds that we need for teacher development and others, construction of new schools, purchases of new school buses, because the state is not supporting you at the level it should to recruit the talent that we know we all need. And there is money available. According to the new consensus forecasting group, you realize at the end of this current budget that we are in, we're going to have $2 billion more in revenue than expenses, $2 billion more than we expected, and that's after everything we were already putting in the rainy day account. With $2 billion sitting there that we can invest portions of right now, we cannot afford not to act. There is money sitting right there, not only for those raises, but for the other investments that are investments in our people. Every one of our teachers, educators, is one of our citizens, raising a family in many instances on their own, and there is money to invest in our kids. How could we not do it when more than enough is available? Since day one of our administration, we've been proud to be an education-first administration. And we know we always will be, because for the first time in a long time, we have a classroom educator as our lieutenant governor. That's Jacqueline Coleman. While there were increases in funding in public education, for which I am grateful, it has been nowhere near enough to address serious challenges that are getting worse. And now is the time we stop losing our educators and start bringing them back. That's why this year we are once again proposing an Education First plan that we talked about and pushed hard last year. But when you are fighting to do the right thing, you do not give up. You push however long it takes. Doing the right thing is always the right thing. The first part of our Education First plan addresses teacher pay, and it provides state funds for an additional 5% raise for every educator, everybody who works in one of our public school buildings, on top of what any school district has done. Passing this is necessary, and trust me, it's not political. Because just to our north over the river, Governor Eric Holcomb, who's a Republican, is pushing the same thing, making teacher pay and investment in education his number one priority in this session. They're working to raise teacher pay on average to at least $60,000 a year all across Indiana. And we're going to be competing to fill our vacancies. It's not only the right thing to do, it is absolutely necessary for us to be competitive. And with the economy we want to build being at the top and not the bottom, we have to have a competitive workforce development, and that starts with getting the very best talent in our public schools. Passing this plan won't immediately fix the 11,000 teacher vacancies that began in large part when pensions were cut for new teachers, something I wish we could revisit because of the decades of service that our educators put in. But it will get us back on the right track, and it will be the state at a time when we have the money doing what it takes to help each and every one of our communities. And I want to say, if we are actually intent on addressing learning loss and not just beating each other up over it politically, This plan must pass. Listen, I sat next to my kids during distance learning. I did, right there, while the educators in this room did their very best at a time we had never lived through before. And I'm proud of our educators and how hard they fought and how hard they tried and how quickly they would have to turn with their lessons plans. And I know how late so many people stayed up at night to do the very best. But that learning loss, it's real. But if we really want to address it, it comes down to a very simple truth. If you want to catch a child up on math, they have to have a math teacher. If you want to catch a child up on reading, they have to have an English teacher. If we care about catching up this generation, and these are my kids, I care deeply, both for them and for yours. This investment is absolutely necessary. And in a little bit, we're going to talk about some other investments that are part of this Education First plan. Things like universal pre-K. Because if we're talking about learning loss and having everybody ready, how about having every single Kentucky child kindergarten ready and saving that family of a 4-year-old on average $12,000 to $15,000 a year? And let me remind you that these two things aren't separate. With as little as we are paying our teachers, they struggle, despite knowing how important pre-K is, to afford it. And that is not right. So next you're going to hear from Chris Clark, the principal here at the Ignite Academy. He oversees both the North and the South campuses. And following our news conference, we invite the media to join us for a tour of this amazing facility because we want to show off all the great things that you are doing. Chris has been an educator here for the past 10 years, including 4 years teaching social studies and 3 years as assistant principal at B. Michael Caudle Middle School. Chris's professional career did not begin in education. Chris began his professional career in 1995 working in the areas of agriculture and construction before transitioning to education. This collaboration of professional experience makes him absolutely perfect to oversee the Ignite Academy for Madison County Schools. Chris, I cannot stress the importance of what you do. You are preparing your students for jobs in this region and beyond, and we want to be here today supporting you so that you can always get that talent that you need right here to provide the very best for your students, and so we can show the world the very best workforce is right here in Kentucky, and we're investing in what it takes to keep them there. Please welcome Chris Clark.
So I want to iterate, Madison County Schools Ignite Academy is very excited to host the governor. I would like to thank the governor and legislators for their commitment to public education, but specifically their investment in career and technical education. The last budget cycle, they allocated monies referred to as LAVEC funding. This funding has allowed us to enrich and extend our offerings and student opportunity. My hope is that the legislators will be able to expand this funding to allow Kentucky to lead the way through equipping students to meet needs of business and industry. Our providing a capable and ready workforce for our community and the state. As the governor said, this is something I'm very passionate about. So hopefully it's something we can extend and grow and just leverage for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. As Chris was talking about, that was definitely a win in the last two budget cycles. In the first one, there was a specific program with a set-aside amount of money, and I remember when we made those grants, the difference between qualifying for one and not was 0.5 point for so many different groups. The legislature, thankfully, strongly considered and ultimately adopted a plan to not only provide funding for those that were in that range without having to reapply, but created a second round of funding, now about $245 million into career and technical education. That is a big win in preparing our kids for the future. Next, I'm honored to invite Amanda Pruitt, a 4th grade science teacher at Waco Elementary School, to join us. Amanda's been teaching in Madison County schools for the past 15 years. Her career as an educator began 22 years ago. Most recently, you ought to be pretty proud of this, Amanda was selected as the B. Michael Caudle Educator of the Year by the Richmond Chamber of Commerce. So here's Teacher of the Year, Amanda Pruitt.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am honored to stand before you today to discuss the importance of public education. Currently, I'm in my 23rd year of experience, and I am a mom of 3 boys who all currently attend Madison County Public Schools. I have been blessed to not only be their mom, but also be called their teacher. In their own words, still their favorite and the best. We can all hope to hear those precious words from a child as an educator, that our time, our efforts, our hard work, and our persistence makes an impact in a child's life. You know, that the time that we spend with them in the classroom places a spark that ignites a transformative process to flourish in who they are becoming and the goals they set out to achieve. So with that, I see that education is the foundation of our society, providing children with the knowledge and skills that they need to succeed in life. It is the great equalizer, giving every child the opportunity to achieve their full potential, regardless of their background or social economic status. And specifically, our work in elementary education serves as the foundation for building strong students that will become our next generation of leaders. Along with learning the foundational skills of reading, math, writing, social studies, and my favorite, science, elementary educators see the importance of helping students with developing critical thinking skills. These skills are important for students entering this workforce because they enable individuals to make informed decisions, solve problems. We want them to be solved efficiently and adapt to the ever-changing circumstances that are before them. Education is about preparing students for their future, equipping them with the knowledge and skills they need to be successful in the workforce and to be able to navigate an ever-changing world and increasingly complex job market. You know, with this ever-changing world, our children are going to be faced with many challenges as they grow and become young adults. In our classrooms, students learn how to be inquisitive. How do they become resourceful and innovative to meet these challenges and overcome adversity? Furthermore, they begin to be able to think critically so they can foster creativity, enabling individuals to come up with new and innovative ideas. These critical thinking skills enable individuals to examine issues thoroughly and then communicate their thoughts and their ideas effectively and persuasively, which is important for many jobs, especially those in leadership roles. As a student builds these foundational skills, they must also develop interpersonal skills as they become responsible citizens within our communities. With all of this, we as educators strive to instill a sense of empathy, kindness, and emotional intelligence within our students to enable them to successfully interact with others, both professionally and personally. You know, education is the key for our children to unlock their potential and achieve their dreams. I urge all of you to support public education. Speak out in support of our schools and encourage our leaders in our community, in our state, and in our nation to make education a priority, remembering that education is about growing and guiding our youth, helping them develop the skills that they need to make a difference in the world. We want them to strive to be the best version of themselves, never giving up when trials are before them. Thomas Edison once said, "Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up." We as educators, we help our students strive to overcome hardships, emerging stronger, never giving up, but instead learn how to persevere through life's challenges. When we invest in our children's future, we are investing in our society, because when our public schools are strong, we are all stronger together. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. You got to be pretty proud, right? Yeah. Next, we're going to hear from Amber Snell, a middle school math teacher at Madison County Middle School, who also works a second job as a realtor to support her family. Amber's been teaching in Madison County schools for 5 years. Her career as an educator began 9 years ago, and she's worked in Clark and Fayette, 2 counties I'm from, and Madison, an amazing county we're in, during that time. She began working in real estate in 2016 as a way to offset the compensation she lost when she left the corporate world to enter the education field. Please welcome Amber Snell. I love your show.
Thank you, thank you. So I'm up here to share a little bit about my personal story, and that would be nowhere without my family. So I wanted to say how honored I am to be in this amazing new vocational building with my grandmother, who is 90 years old and was one of the original VOTEC teachers in Madison County. So I think that's super awesome. I want to start off by saying I love my job. Are there pieces and parts I'm working to change, like compensation? Absolutely. But at the end of each day and in the morning when I wake up, I know that I make a difference in the lives of those that I touch, and I love what I do. Now, I can clearly, beyond a shadow of a doubt, stand by that statement, because as much as I always wanted to be a mommy, I never thought I would be a teacher. When I worked part-time in college as a youth director at my church, the high school kids, those were my people. The middle schoolers, they were too weird, too awkward. They didn't get my jokes. They were just on a different level than I. And when asked if I would ever consider teaching, I knew that teaching was not for me, because there wasn't an opportunity to advance. There wasn't any pay there. Because that's what we're taught. Being well off and advancing in your career and your job, that's how you feel successful. That's how you know you've accomplished something. So I originally graduated from EKU as a dual major in marketing and psychology, with plans to continue in our family business and expand that family business here in Madison County. Then in 2007, the recession hit. My daughter was born, and we closed our 40-plus year family business. My world shifted beneath my feet, and I no longer was sure what I wanted to do with my life. Because I had always been raised in a sales business, I was good at it. So I went to work for an insurance agency. I was good at it, winning trips amongst a recession. But I quickly knew this was not the success I was looking for. I've learned throughout life to make connections, just like I teach my students. So I reached out and was lucky enough to obtain a job at a corporate defense contractor that had a site here in central Kentucky. I was honored to work there for 6 years, rising up quickly through the leadership opportunities, earning my MBA once again from EKU, all with a trajectory of advancing higher and for additional pay. Yet I found myself missing that time with youth from my church. I missed the conversations, the opportunities to challenge their thinking, to make them think deeper about the way our world works, to see the light bulb moments when they understood a new concept that we were exploring. After my third child was born in 2014, a lot of praying, hoping, planning ahead, and leaning on my support village of friends and family, I turned in my 2 weeks' notice at my nice corporate job to leave to finish my master's degree in arts of teaching and become the person I never thought I'd be, a middle school teacher. In fact, when they placed our W-2s in my mailbox today, I make less now than I did 14 years ago. While I'm so incredibly thankful for my husband's support, we've often spoken about over the past 8 years while teaching, that I left a job making more individually that he and I do now combined with our multiple jobs. Because you see, as much as I love teaching, and I know I do because I've seen the other side of the fence, I didn't settle here because there was nothing else. And I didn't end up here because those who can't do teach. I chose to be here. I know that this is where I'm meant to be. I'm amazing at my job, not just because of teaching math, but helping students know that they are loved and that they matter, and helping them become critical and logical thinkers, problem solvers for the issues in our world. My husband and I struggle at times to provide for our family of 4, and all the extra bonus kids I'm Mama Snell to. From picking up kids to bring them to school, running them home after practices or dances because their grandparents don't drive at night, helping provide snacks in my room because they are hungry, or the myriad of other things that educators do and thousands of us do on a daily basis that help hold up the fractured fabric of our society. This loving our students and letting them know they matter, it doesn't pay the best. So I also run a real estate business with my father that without it, I don't know where my family would be. My husband and oldest son, who's an 8th grader at my middle school, they mow yards in the summer to help offset family needs. And my daughter, who's a sophomore at Madison Central, tutors, babysits, and works with our real estate business to have money to help pay for her AP fees and registration to clubs when we don't have it budgeted at that time. If I'm being honest, a 5% pay raise may just barely cover the extra stuff that I and so many other amazing teachers already spend on our classrooms and students and professional resources to ensure that we are evolving to provide our students with the best educations possible. There's been a shift in how we revere and honor our education profession, and the pay has been reflected along with that. But not only are we working to help our students grow into the amazing potential that we know is within each and every single one of them, we are also being called to serve in ways that we never were before. Last week, as every available space under a desk in my room was occupied by a child, the teachers were the ones wiping away the tears, providing reassurance with coloring books and jokes and words of encouragement to stay calm as we walked around the rooms and hallways to help our students know that we would always be there to protect them. We strategized through ways to protect our classrooms and our students should the unthinkable happen of an attack on our schools. We work with our school nurses who are already spread too thin to know how to administer life-saving EpiPens or insulin for our students. We work with our limited school psychologists and counselors who are spread across multiple schools to try and prioritize which students' mental health needs are the highest and most immediate needs for that day. Our schools are trying to repair the fractured support of our communities and perform the multitude of professional needs for our students, far beyond the teaching of ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. I've heard it said before, but nothing rings truer to me, that education is the cradle from which all other professions are born. We inspire our students to be engineers, welders, electricians, doctors, firemen, zoologists, cancer researchers, builders, and one day, we need to hope and pray that the best of the best will be inspired to come back to our classrooms and teach the next generation. But for that to happen, many things must change, and paying a professional wage for professional work is a great place to begin. I always send my students out of my class letting them know that they are loved and matter. And to my children at home and my bonus kids who ride with me in the morning, there's an extra message I will leave you with today. I love you. Be kind, change the world, and have a great day.
Next time you go first. Thank y'all. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for being there even when it's hard. And right now, at a time when you're not getting the resources you need or the pay you need to raise your own families, thank you for continuing to persevere. And I promise you, I'll keep fighting. We'll keep trying to do the right thing. Jacqueline Coleman has been in your shoes. And we're going to make sure that certainly we continue to push. Now let's turn from teacher pay to the need for universal pre-K and what it could do for every single child in the Commonwealth when far too many of them show up behind. We were listening to a kindergarten teacher talk about some of the statistics of 5-year-olds that have had pre-K showing up to kindergarten 9 months ahead of some of their peers in certain areas. And that's when it hit me. That's 9 months ahead when the kids are only 5 years old. Think about the difference. Think about what we could do for our workforce, which we talk about so much in Frankfurt. In addition to helping our kids, which I'll talk about a little more, the single most effective way that we could get more people back into the workforce right now that are out of it is universal pre-K. When they did this in Washington, D.C., the last big area to institute it, they added more than 9% to their workforce in 1 year. So many folks with the ability and being able to afford to have their child in a secure, positive, education-filled location empowers them to get back to work, and at a time when we got so many jobs out there, any way that we could put 9% more people into our workforce that quickly would be an incredible thing. But it's also now, like we talked about with teacher pay, a matter of competition. Not because Indiana is pushing for it too, but because Cincinnati just announced that they're going to do universal pre-K in their city. So if you are a Northern Kentucky family, a talented Northern Kentucky family, one that we want to keep in our Commonwealth, and you are looking at a cost savings across the river of $12,000 plus, we are at a competitive disadvantage. Just as serious, our kids will not be as well prepared as those across the Ohio River if we do not act. Last year, the National Institute for Early Childhood Research found that in 2019, nearly half of 3-year-olds and a third of 4-year-olds were not enrolled in preschool because their parents couldn't afford it. It's one of the toughest conversations I've had with folks. And it's much tougher, their reality is much tougher. When you hear from someone that I always thought I was poor, but I didn't know I wasn't poor enough to qualify for Head Start, and I can't afford pre-K. That is a heartbreaking story that none of our families should have to go through. It's heartbreaking that our families can't access the early education during their child's critical mental development period. And then later, we expect these children to succeed when we did not invest in them at a time when so much of this development is occurring. We have tons, decades of research on how effective universal pre-K and pre-K is. And so don't let the information, one study here or there, one thing that people put out on the internet, dissuade you from what we know is an absolute fact that our children in Kentucky would do better, would score better, would turn out better if we had pre-K for every single one of them. Universal pre-K is a win-win for both parents and students. It's a win for our economy, and it's an absolute necessity for us to stay competitive. And you're going to hear from our Lieutenant Governor, who's also a mom of a toddler. By the way, I'm a dad. I corrected that. I'm a dad of 2 middle schoolers, so my Lord, thank you for what you do, and everybody pray for me. You're going to hear from her personally and as Lieutenant Governor about the absolute importance of universal pre-K. But let me tell you that our Education First plan goes further. It would provide the funding that in the past has been cut for professional development for our educators and the extra resources that you need. If we need to do things differently to address learning loss, let's make sure we fund it and that we have the proper professional development for it. You're required to take the professional development, which means we've got a duty to pay for it. It provides additional money for mental and emotional support, not just for our students, and man, they need it. It's harder being a kid and a young person today than it was when I was one. That means we've got to listen to them and provide those supports, but our plan also provides more support for our educators, because what you experience, what you go through, the trauma that you help people through, means that sometimes you need to get a little help, and we ought to be better funding that too. I want to thank everybody at this school for what you do. I want you to hear loud and clear that we love you, and we care about you. And we're going to continue to do everything we can to advocate for you this year, next year, the year after. We will keep going because you deserve so much better. But let me bring in our closer, my boss, the Lieutenant Governor. And let me tell you that she is the first educator in a constitutional office like this since Martha Lane Collins. Think about what that means and about how we can always assure that we're listening, that we're hearing, and that we're doing the right thing. Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman.
Thank you so much, Governor. And let me first say that I wake up every day so grateful for the opportunity to do this work. We've been an Education First administration from the very beginning because Governor Beshear knew that it was important enough to choose a running mate that had experience in the classroom. And as the highest elected teacher and mother in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, let me just say that this Education First plan is personal to me. I have walked in the shoes of these teachers that you have heard from today, and I know that we all have one goal, and that is to help our kids become better today than they were yesterday. Not just better writers or historians, but better humans. And yes, our teachers are selfless, and yes, this job is a calling. I know that because they're my colleagues, they're my friends, and I even happen to be married to one. But they should not be victims of circumstance, nor should their courage to answer a calling be touted as the reason that they're paid less than they deserve. The future of Kentucky's economy is in our classrooms today, and that makes these folks our original job creators. While they are molding young minds, our future nurses, we have a few in the back I got to meet earlier, small business owners and electricians, they are also shouldering the weight of our future workforce every day. Not only are they bearing that burden with inadequate pay, they're doing it with $0 of funding for textbooks, technology, and instructional resources, often paying out of their own pockets for the things the kids in their classroom need. No relief for their own student loan bills that roll in every month, which makes it harder and harder for them to save for their own kids' education. Little to no guidance on how to support the emotional, social, and mental health needs of their students when the key to learning is building relationships. With about 2/3 of our kids walking through the door on the first day of kindergarten ill-prepared. You heard me. 2/3 walking through the door on the first day of kindergarten ill-prepared. It is a miracle that we have a post-secondary readiness rate that's 73%. But imagine what it could be if every kid in the Commonwealth had access to preschool and families didn't have to worry that it was their child that was going to start behind the 8 ball and stay behind the 8 ball through their high school graduation. As the mom of an almost 3-year-old, so he has teenagers, I have a 3-nager, right? I want universal pre-K for every kid in Kentucky because it's what I want for Evelyn. My grandfather had a saying. We would watch basketball growing up together, and as he dissected the talent on the floor, he'd look at me and he'd say, "You know, sis, you can't win the Kentucky Derby with a pack mule." And that is exactly what our schools have been asked to do. And it's what brings us here today. So if I had to sum up our Education First plan, which happens to be my job today, I'd say it's threefold. It shows you how we put students first, how we support the people who show up for our kids and pour into them every day, And it's making sure that we give our schools the resources to do what we've asked them to do. Because they can't win the Kentucky Derby with a pack mule. Leading with our values. Investing in our littlest learners and the people who pour into them every day, so that we can sustain the unprecedented growth that we are seeing in Kentucky tomorrow. But most importantly, it's so that every child, regardless of their zip code, has the chance at a world-class education. And that requires teachers who are valued. It requires schools that are resourced. And now, it requires people in positions of power who are willing to do the right thing. Thank you so much.
Pastor, as I close us out, I was thinking how I try to live my life following that golden rule and the parable of the Good Samaritan. And I think about who taught us that golden rule is one of the most important commandments, and who taught us that parable of the Good Samaritan. He was described as a carpenter and a teacher. If that's not an incredible message of how we ought to be treating our teachers, to ensure that we are getting them the very best, and not just those that are teaching in a classroom, but everybody who works in one of these buildings, providing for the safety of our families. Whether you are the superintendent or you work in the cafeteria, or if you're one of our amazing custodians, my goodness, hasn't COVID taught us how much they do to keep us safe? You deserve a better living. You deserve a better wage. And no matter how long it takes, we're going to continue to fight for it. I was taught that by a lady named Beshear. She fought for 6 straight legislative sessions to get the dropout age raised from 16 to 18. What the group she was dealing with didn't know is she is stubborn. But she learned her persistence by being a teacher at Woodford County Public Schools. So thank you all for having us today. Let's do the right thing. That's all we're asked, is to do the right thing. Please reach out, spread the word. Let's get this thing passed. Let's do better for our educators, because then we do better for our kids. We'll take a couple questions if the media has them, and then we got to go on this tour to see the amazing things going on in this facility, because I look around and I'm really jealous. Any? All right. Thank you all very much.